So, do you remember in the last mission, Mission 123 Part 1, I mentioned that Tatsuya Endo seemed to be moving forward with the main quest more quickly, indicating that he wanted to focus on the progression of the main part of the story. And yet, when we got to Mission 123 Part 1, I mentioned that Tatsuya Endo trolled us again because what we thought would be a continuation of the main quest ended up being yet another hilarious Anya at school antics. And considering that Mission 123 Part 2 is a continuation of that, the expectation was that, Tatsuya Endo was going to continue on with the hilarious antics, which turned out to be true. However, in his usual manner of constantly mixing and matching, I feel that within this wacky story that we see in this chapter, there seems to be indications once again that Tatsuya Endo wants to move the main storyline more quickly. And there seems to be some interesting tidbits that comes out within this chapter that goes over some very interesting potential reveals. It's hard to say whether they are reveals because they're not directly in-your-face sort of reveals. But some of the things that come up seems to give the readers the potential for thought with regards to, once again, the main quest. And no, I'm not talking about the final image with regards to Mr. Henderson, although there may be some connection to that as well. But the main wacky storyline seems to drop some information with regards to, once again, the main quest. Anyway, so what's up, people, and welcome to the Mission 123-2 discussion of Spy Family. So Mission 123-2 came out a while back, and as always, I will leave a link to this mission that's currently being shown on the publisher's official website, Manga Plus, for free to the North American audience. So if you're interested, we'll go take a look at it before they pull this mission back. So, okay, if you recall, Mission 123-1 was all about the horrific, scary story with regards to Anya and her gang going to the haunted building in Eden College. And we got to see some seriously terrifying scenes of Connie making some of the most frightening facial expressions in the entire comic series. And of course, Mission 123-2 continues on with that. If you recall, at the end of Mission 123-1, they were running around in the second floor, the third floor, when they saw this wet shoe after they heard a scream. And once again, in that chapter, we mentioned that there didn't seem to be any missing students, so the shoe didn't seem to belong to anybody within Anya's gang, right? So, of course, with that, and since nobody lost their shoe, it gave the gang this frightening thought that this shoe was haunted. And so 123-2 starts out where 123-1 left off, where Connie is trying to exorcise the shoe. But the way she's doing it makes her feel more demonic than the shoe when she's taking out this flail sort of whip sort of thing and whipping the crap out of the shoe. And just to make it even more demonic, instead of talking and trying to exercise it out, she's just sitting there growling like some beastly animal. And then she goes running off into the next floor. And of course, Anya, for some reason, starts growling as well. And it's not because she's possessed. It's not because she has that same sort of feeling as Connie. It's just because she thought that, I guess, Connie looked cool. So she just wanted to do the same thing. And she captures that shoe with her insect net, right? And I love the image of Damien looking at Anya going, "What the heck are you doing?" You know? And Tertius is sitting there going, "Wow, Astanian girls are sure hardy." And Damien's like, "Please do not let these girls be the representation of Astania." But anyway, they get to the next floor up because they're chasing after Connie. And I guess this is the third floor. And Tertius finds this room called the dissection room. And here's where the first tidbit comes in, right? I mean, Ewan is talking, or it's that Emil. I always never can tell which is which. But in any case, one of them is talking about Tertius being overreactive. And it's just urban legends that he's talking about. And yet it's Arnold who says that no, he has heard some interesting stories from older students. And they say that there were some students that were used as test subjects during the Great War. And the test subjects were used for what is considered devil rituals. And so, of course, this sounds like urban legends. You can see Tertius turn into a zombie in fear, and Damien, of course, scolding Arnold with regards to that, trying to help Tertius by poking at him, right? But why I say it's a tidbit is because if this turned out to be part of Project Apple, then what you would expect is that there would be some laboratories where they are working on human subjects. And of course, their surgeries or operations would probably be indicative of something that may look like a devil ritual from somebody outside. And so was there some sort of tie with regards to Project Apple and the things that were going on in Eden College? It's hard to tell, but considering the fact that there is all of this going on in the background with regards to text subject 007 and of course Professor Otten and everything else, there may be some indication that Tatsuya Endo's once again dropping these things in kind of a secretive manner to later on become actually important and more than a gag. And of course this continues on because Anya starts hearing voices. And of course, this is in line with it being a horror chapter, in that there may be evil spirits within this haunted area. But if we are to stay within reality, the thing that I was thinking about was that there may be other students in the school that may be hiding out in this area just for fun. And when Anya's gang came over, of course, they were trying to hide away and were thinking that they would wish these kids would go away. And since Anya can read their minds, it almost felt like there was this demonic being nearby. On the other hand, it is interesting that this voice came over the same coincidental time as Arnold talking about the devil rituals. And in fact, the next scene is a major one where we see something actually fly by the window. And of course that terrifies all of the kids and they go running off. But what's interesting coming back is that when they go running off and they look back to see if there's anybody chasing them, they notice that Anya has fallen over due to the overwhelming situation that has happened when she was reading the minds. And what's interesting is this typically doesn't happen unless she gets overwhelmed by so many thoughts out there, right? I mean, when there's hundreds of thoughts, then Anya would start becoming dizzy. But she usually doesn't get into this situation if she's just reading one mind. However, and this is something that I will talk about later, if this thought turned out to be overwhelmingly powerful compared to that of a standard person, then maybe that person's thought was so strong that it could overwhelm Anya. And considering that there was something flying by, of course there does seem to be something hiding out in the college. And everything seems to indicate that it is a ghost. Yeah, to make sure that everybody's safe, Connie decides to go exorcise the ghost. But once again, Damien is like, you're the most scariest person in this entire situation, as Connie throws everything from talisman to garlic to whatever she has in her arsenal at whatever may be coming at them. And she picks up Anya's net and they go running off. And it is at that time that they get attacked by some of the most terrifying facial beasts that come after them. Which of course isn't true because it's actually just students from class 4, including Bill Watkins. You remember the 6-year-old that looks like a 36-year-old? But in any case, they seem to be terrified as well, and that's why they had those facial expressions. And of course, the first person that sees them is Tertius, which of course makes him almost have a heart attack. Tertius is going to have a terrifying night to remember from this. But in fact, I guess Bill Watkins was here to do exactly the same thing. Hopefully that they could discover a ghost and that would get them a stellar star later on. But he got so terrified and started running that he lost his shoe, and of course that ties to the shoe that they discovered on the stairs. So everything is kind of falling together. And it indicates that maybe there are no ghosts, with the exception of the fact that there was that life form that flew by them, right? And also the thoughts of someone who was almost like communicating to Anya to leave. But in any case, they were able to get away. Everybody seems to have gotten PTSD from the entire incident, with the exception of Anya. I'm not sure why Anya is so calm throughout this entire thing, but she's sitting there going, Damien, I think you lost your chance of getting a stellar star. And Damien's like, will you just shut up? I'm the one who rescued you, So they go home, and Anya's telling Lloyd about her fighting a ghost, and Lloyd's like, will you just go do your homework, right? And so the next day, for some reason, everybody is sneezing, and Becky's asking what's going on. And so they talk about how they went to the old schoolhouse, and Becky's like, you actually went there? Not believing that they would go through such an ordeal. When all of a sudden, Connie starts running towards them saying, we're in big trouble. And Becky goes, hi, Connie. Anya's like, who the heck are you? And Connie's like, well, you just remember who I am. And so, of course, everybody's thinking that they were caught going into the old schoolhouse and maybe they were going to get in trouble. But that's not the case. Connie just informed them that Mr. Henderson may be getting fired from the school. So, of course, this completely flips the story over from something completely comedic to something very serious. And we expect that the next chapters will go into whatever politics is going on in Eden College that is potentially trying to terminate Mr. Henderson. And I got a feeling Anya and the gang and eventually Lloyd might be getting into the story to try to save Mr. Henderson. But that isn't the subject that I wanted to talk about with regards to the main storyline. But going back to, again, that mysterious voice that was in the old schoolhouse. And yeah, it might be an older student that was kind of goofing around and hiding in the schoolhouse, and before they could get caught, they kind of wanted to scare the kids away. But the other possibility goes back to the devil ritual and the operation, which has very similar situations to something that may happen in Project Apple when the scientists were working on the test subjects, including Anya, right? And the reason I say this once again is if the other person, this mysterious voice, turned out to be another test subject from Project Apple, their thoughts may be far more powerful than the average individual, and that may have been the reason why Anya got so disoriented when reading that person's mind. Was that almost a psychic attack to Anya to try to make her leave, knowing that she was also a member of Project Apple? And what will be interesting is if that is the case, then that seems to tie Project Apple to this college. And why I feel that that's interesting is this then tends to focus on the theory that many of the fans had with regards to the tie-in between Eden College, the project, and even Garden, right? Yes, yours assassination organization. And if that turns out to be the case, maybe this is the first incident that at least ties the project to this college. And the reason why, of course, the fans bring out that theory is with regards to the name of these organizations, right? You have Garden, you have Eden, and you have Apple. And when you put it together, of course, it gives some analogy to biblical terms, right, of Genesis with regards to the Garden of Eden and the forbidden fruit of the apple. And of course, the forbidden fruit was the situation that when Adam bit into the fruit, of course, he received self-awareness, but at the same time, he was exiled from the Garden of Eden. And if that self-awareness or that greater knowledge turned out to be equivalent to the ability to read other people's minds, then is there a tie-in between Project Apple as the project that you see in the comic versus what you see in Genesis? And if that's the case, then is there, once again, a tie between Garden and Eden? Is there a situation that there is a Garden of Eden? What I mean by that is the managing body of Garden someone who is in Eden College? And if that's the case, and Garden is taking orders from Eden, then what is the purpose of that, and how does Project Apple tie in? And if that voice was really another test subject of Project Apple, then will we be getting an introduction to yet another student coming in the future that eventually will be a test subject also of Project Apple and potentially a rival of Anya's? It's hard to say, but these little tidbits coming down with regards to the devil ritual that looks like the experimentation of humans, and this voice that only Anya can hear, goes off to indicate that there is some very unusual, shady situations that are going on in this college. And if Tatsuya Endo is trying to bring this story forward, maybe he's trying to bring these organizations together. And once again, considering this entire situation started with the reveal of Professor Otten, are we starting to get some glimpses into the actual organization of Project Apple? So this is very interesting. And I would like to see what happens. So I got a feeling that in the next chapter, we will see more about Henry Henderson. And for all we know, whatever politics that's going on in there is actually associated with the main story of Operation Strix and Project Apple. But we will have to find out what Tatsuya Endo wants to do. This is quite mysterious in the way Tatsuya Endo is moving, at least in the short term of what he wants to do chapter by chapter. But in the long term, it does feel like we are starting to get more and more information with regards to this project and potentially the possible tie-in between the school and the project. And if that's the case, and if the theories that many of the fans have put together with regards to Garden and Eden and Apple are true, then we might start seeing some significant reveals with regards to all three organizations as the story moves on. And if that is the case, that will be interesting because the entire thing revolves around 2 points. One is that whatever organization is moving seems to want to start a war. And the question is why? Why is there a war that is being created? And what does that have to do with the possible potential forbidden fruit of the Project Apple and the Garden of Eden? And Garden being an assassination organization. And the second point is that the group that was sent in to investigate this from Westalis is the WISE organization. So that is the one organization that's outside of those three groups. But they are coming towards them, and we do know that Donovan Desmond most likely knows that Lloyd is Agent Twilight. So if that happens, then how is this going to affect the organization from the West? And if Alton knows that Anya is 7, And Donovan knows that Lloyd is Twilight, and of course Garden already knows that Yor is the Thorn Princess. How are they going to move the chess pieces in the manner that they want to? And is Donovan associated with this group? Is he something completely different from Project Apple? Those are questions that we still haven't seen yet, but it is interesting to see how Tatsuya Endo is dropping little tidbits that indicates that Project Apple may be getting revealed in the future. I don't know, this all may be speculation, and I would like to hear your input with regards to that. But anyway, this is the Mission 123 Part 2 discussion of Spy Family. If you read it, what you think about it, any comments will be greatly appreciated. And until the next episode, happy manga reading, and as always, Jaya, nice day everyone.